and we will be over there soon. So TUSIAD folks will be visiting us towards the end of April, so we look forward to that. Hopefully we'll have a larger event. For those of you who is together with us for the first time, TUSIAD Network here is just 2 years old, very young NGO that we're trying to build up here as a network. And our primary goal is to make sure that we build a link between the business community here in the Silicon Valley and the Bay Area, together with the business community back in Istanbul. And what we try to do is basically set up around 4 to 6 events per year, and to encourage this communication between the folks over here, that we get to know each other. But then very lately, we actually started devising these webcasts that we're putting some experts together out of the Silicon Valley and have them talk to the folks in Istanbul and the wider Turkey. So we actually are about to have our second event coming out just this week, that the founder of Firefly will be talking to the startup community back in Istanbul. So with that, it's an exciting night, a very hot topic, and we've got spectacular panelists. So to introduce that, I give the word over to Kayin, the head of our Founders Network. So over to you.
Thank you, Akis. It's an honor to host all of you. I'm chair of the Founders Network. Our aim in this committee is to bring the community together and produce interesting content for Bay Area Turkish founders and their friends and investors. And I would also like to acknowledge my team members, Sena Zorlu. Where's Sena? Let's give her a hand for all the hard work, despite being pregnant. She did all the heavy lifting. We also have Burhan, Tutkun, and Neşe and Burhan. We meet about once a month and talk about new ideas we can use to bring the community together. So if you want to join our team, let either of us know. We'd love to have you. And also, I'd like to acknowledge Silicon Valley Bank's support for our organization. Please show your appreciation, if you can, by using them whenever appropriate. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Eylul, our moderator for this evening.
Thank you so much for Aisha, Jude, Sayan, and Sana for this event and getting all together. So before starting, I want to ask how many entrepreneurs are there here? Wow. Okay. And are you guys raising right now? Okay. Okay. Great. So I hope this will be a very good event, a very good session for you. So before inviting my panelists, so I would like to tell a little bit about myself. So I'm Gultekin Clark, and I'm the founder of Two Venture Partners. So I invest in early stage tech companies with a focus on B2B and fintech. And I'm also a venture partner at Turkey's largest private bank, İş Bank's Silicon Valley office, and okay, I'm going to invite ladies first. So Eylul, please join us to the stage. Baris from Human Capital, and Emrah. Okay. Yeah, I know. My nose. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. And guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And it will be great to have your perspective. So fundraising is an obvious topic, but there are so many questions. So let's dig in. And before that, can you please tell a little bit about us, a little bit about yourself, like Eylul?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Kayin. I currently work at an investment fund called SoftBank. I spend most of my time looking into growth stage investments in the fintech space. I'm a generalist, but spend the majority of my time looking into fintech and B2B payment services. I failed to answer this question earlier. I've been in the US for about 12 years now. I went to high school in Turkey and then came here for college. And I kept thinking, I went to school in New York, and I kept thinking maybe I'll work in London, and I got a job in New York, then I got another one in San Francisco, and now I work with Japanese companies, and the joke is maybe I'll just find my way back home if I keep switching jobs. But I enjoy living in San Francisco. It's been about 5-6 years. It's my second home now, and I'm excited to be here with you today.
Hey everyone, my name is Baris. I went to Stanford for my undergrad, was here for class of 16. I started Stanford doing more management science and engineering, more on the business side of things. And then 1 month into school, ended up starting a company with a friend from my freshman year. Built that company on the side of school for a year, and then sold that company my second year. And my first co-founder at the time, Ryan, started a company called Bolt. I don't know if any of you interested in fintech know of them, but when Ryan started Bolt, my current co-founder, Arman, was actually his first investor, was also our classmate at Stanford. So I used the money from the first company to start angel investing in my friends' companies as a sophomore on campus, which was a very unique and privileged place to be. I ended up finishing my CS degree at Stanford in 3 years. So when I was finishing in 2015, I knew I wanted to do something again, but I didn't know what that would look like. So at the time, I met with some of the smartest engineering friends I had to ask them what are they doing with their careers and why. And during those conversations, the common answer was to join Google or Facebook. And when I asked why, it wasn't because they were very excited about the opportunity, but they saw it as a stepping stone to do something higher impact down the line. And I would ask, okay, what does that higher impact opportunity look like? And they would say either start a company or join a company. I say, okay, I understand why you might not want to start a company right away, but why not join an early stage company right away? And the most common answer will be not knowing what are the best opportunities. And that insight sparked what we are building at Human Capital today. So now, 5 years fast forward, we like to say we're building the agency for ambitious engineers. Agency models primarily existed in sports and entertainment. So if you're a really talented actor, actress, athlete, you'll have an agent in the beginning of your career who discovers you and partners you for the long term to always connect you with opportunities and generate a better outcome. Whereas if you're a really talented engineer or technologist, no one has your back for the journey. And that's where we come in. We meet with thousands of engineers just as they begin their career. To give you a sense of scale, last year our team interviewed more than 3,000 engineers in person. And as we get to know those engineers, we try to figure out how we can be an effective partner for them. And for the ones who want to join companies, we connect them with some of the best startups in the valley. And for the ones who want to start their own companies, we raise our own venture capital funds to support them. We started with raising a $5 million fund when we were juniors in college. Today, we manage more than $150 million to invest in companies either started by our engineers or the companies they joined to. And over the last few years, we were lucky to see 6 of our early investments become unicorns. And with that, we are very excited to support entrepreneurs. The part of the business I spend a lot of my time is partnering with early stage entrepreneurs as they figure out how they want to build their companies. So anyone here in the audience thinking about what they want to do with their career, always happy to grab a coffee.
That was a really good pitch. My name is Emrah. I am the co-founder and CEO of Chooch AI, and we do visual AI intelligence, which is we clone human intelligence into machines, basically visual intelligence. And basically, what we're doing is we take if you're an expert in a certain field, like biotech, microscopy, we take your capability to find and detect cells or types of cells, and we put it into a machine so that you don't have to do it anymore. And we proliferate you. So it's one person, and we proliferate you to thousands of people, thousands of AI. So my background is I'm more of a generalist. So I've been an entrepreneur out of college. I went back to Turkey in the late 90s, very idealistic time to be back. And then did a lot of work over there, built 7 companies. 3 of them succeeded, 3 of them went sideways, and 1 failed, mainly in the real estate industry. So you may know Balat Fener. I was part of that entire program of redeveloping that between 2003 and 2009. I also was a co-founder of Plateau, which became Ayvasar University later. Some of these things that you may know from Turkey. I was also the managing director and partner of Goodman for logistics development in Turkey as well, for facilities. So we did a lot of development of industrial parks. So you may ask, why am I here after so long? Basically, we grew up with Generation X, which means we watched too much sci-fi. I was a coder when I was very, very young, and my brother he took up that and just kept going with coding skills. And he would come to me every 5 years with an idea. And of course, I was like, what are you talking about? I don't understand what it is. And 5 years later, though, those things would come to fruition. So after 3 passes, I told him, listen, come back with an idea and we'll take it up. And this was an idea of AI. He was already developing it for image recognition for the healthcare industry. He had proliferated it and was being used in hospitals in India and China. And we said, can we generalize it, AI, basically? So 3 people actually were very influential in that decision. It's a big decision to come here. We call it Jahi Cesaret in Turkish. But we did it. Selahattin, who's here, was very influential in making that decision. He said, if you're going to do this, you have to go to San Francisco, to the Bay Area to do it. So we packed up our bags and came out here. I was in Washington, D.C. at the time, and Hakan was in Turkey. So we've been very, very lucky through our journey. We've been working hard, obviously, and we're very happy to be here and part of this panel. And TUSIAD, Silicon Valley, which has helped us mentor, especially Sayan and Ashigud. They've been very, very helpful. And that's kind of our background, my background, and would like to share our experience as well. So thanks.
Thank you so much. So I was going to ask what do you guys invest in, but you already mentioned a little bit. So you're investing in growth stage companies and with a focus on B2B and fintech. And what's your average check size?
So of course, for the specific fund I work at, it's a little on the extreme end of the spectrum. So our minimum check size is actually 100 million, but typically we look to deploy, upwards of 400 to 500 million within the lifetime of a particular asset. And the rationale behind that is because the fund that we're currently investing out of is about $100 billion. And so as you think about sort of the personnel that can involve, the ability to have 1,000 board seats is already quite, from an operational perspective, burdensome. So there's a little bit of that, and then there's a little bit of the bigger vision, obviously, beyond some of the operational efficiency. And it's the idea that we can find certain large macro trends globally, find undisputable category leaders, and find them and give them the capital and the opportunities and the connections through the portfolio to continue to propel their growth to the next stage. So these are usually companies that obviously have certain product market fit, have reached a certain scale, and obviously are growing tremendously and hopefully responsibly. But we see substantially more potential in what they can do, perhaps expanding internationally, expanding through different product categories, upselling to the same customer, or just thinking about participating in our ecosystem. So this is a very small response, but that's typically the type of company that I spend time on.
And what about Baris? You said you are investing in engineers. What's your average check size?
So we invest in 2 types of companies. The ones started by the engineers we partnered for long term. In those cases, we are usually the first investor, and we'll write a check between 500K to 1.5 million. And on the later stage, we invest in the companies that we recruit for and companies that we help grow. And for those companies, our check sizes will vary anywhere from $3 to $30 million.
You guys are touching almost every stage of the startup. Before asking questions to Emrah, So I have another question for you guys. Do you think like, is it possible for our founders to successfully fundraise in the Bay Area?
Absolutely. And so two things. One is, again, speaking for the fund I'm particularly, working at, more than half of our portfolio companies actually come from outside the US. So it's a lot of our bread and butter actually think about growth in Asia, growth in some of the emerging markets. But taking a step back, I personally find it incredibly fascinating and exciting to go explore like what's happening in the Midwest, what's happening in North Carolina. There's so many interesting opportunities in these like unpaved sort of parts of the US when there's, like, if you think about Utah, the kind of engineering talent that's coming out there right now is phenomenal. The kind of sales teams that are coming out of the universities there is just phenomenal. And I know for a fact that similar hubs of engineering growth is being seen in Germany and parts of Eastern Europe as well. And as sort of collaborating remotely becomes more and more convenient, easy, and sort of a natural way of working, it should absolutely be quite expected for a lot of these companies to be based in regions that you're not necessarily expecting them to be, and maybe a lot of their employees to be completely based somewhere else as well.
In that case, when you invest in a company outside Bay Area, how do you help them, like as an investor?
So again, it goes back to the, I think, ecosystem synergies. As we sit on a large platform of multinational companies, I think one opportunity that we are able to give to our portfolio companies is to start to help the internationalization process. Let's say you want to set up shop in, well, again, I know I'm just talking internationally, maybe you're asking more like specific network, and I'll get to that one too, but let's say you want to set up shop in Indonesia, how would you get about doing that? You have no clue, but if you have somebody who can hold your hand, basically be a big brother for you in that region, I think it makes it significantly easier to hire the right people, to work through the regulatory landscape and all that. Maybe your specific question was more on how do I sort of, increase their network and sort of exposure and help them with customers. I'm thinking he's going to have a better answer for that one, so I'm going to hand it over to him. But again, I think it is absolutely correct that companies that are based here have more visibility to the VC community. It's easier for them to network. It is easier for them to hire. That being said, those lines are being blurred every single day.
Yeah, I think both of us both of us are part of very unique firms. So I'm not sure a lot of our answers will be very generalizable because like her firm is obviously unique on its own and my firm is unique on its own. So happy to also give some more like general VC perspective. I'm sure she can also add to that instead of just talking about our firms. But into that specific question in terms of how we add value to the companies we invest in, we decided to focus on one thing and just be excellent at that. And we decided to help companies build amazing engineering teams. And we built a business out of that. So we help some of the companies we invest in build their engineering teams. We help some companies build 20, 30, 40% of their engineering teams.
And you guys are investing in startups in the Bay Area or anywhere else?
We invest only in the US.
Only in the US.
And we invest in companies who have engineering teams in the US as well. Because if you have an engineering team somewhere else, we won't be able to add value to that company. So there's no reason for them to ask our money instead of someone else who can be smarter in the way they add value.
Yeah, my next question will be actually like, what are your thoughts on like having HQ in the Bay Area and the engineering team outside, let's say Turkey? For like a couple of years ago, all the like, majority of investors would say no to that in the Bay Area, but right now, all the housing crisis in the Bay Area and the city is super expensive. So right now, a lot of investors has changed their minds, and they're so okay, you can have your engineering team back your hometown and HQ here. So what do you guys think about it? You guys, you just said that like you invest in like pretty internationally. So as long as like you believe in the team, it's
not a big problem to you?
Yes, I think the more interesting question is not where the team is operating, but what economies and what sort of regions they're trying to sell their products into. So I think there's a lot of obviously discussions we had, like, let's say you're a business that is based in Turkey and is only, like let's say your payments business that is only operating in Turkey. Obviously that is a very large economy, but in its own, is it large enough to, give you, 25, 30 companies that are going to be unicorns? I think that's a tough one to answer, mostly because of the time question you're talking about. But if you're, let's say, a Pan-African play, that's a whole different conversation. So I would say people probably don't, at least in my personal experience, I don't spend a bunch of time thinking where the engineering is based. I'm thinking where is the opportunity, and are these guys sort of have this like sales team, perfectly aligned with the where the actual customers are. So I actually have a bigger problem with having a massive sales team in West Coast than trying to sell a bunch of stuff into Wall Street and New York, right? So you just have to be your right type of employees have to be at the right place at the right time.
You already mentioned it, so I'm going to the next question. What's the best way for an entrepreneur to reach out to you, Baris?
I think for us, for human capital, we first meet with engineers really early on in their career. And as we become part of their journey, when they become entrepreneurs, we also continue to maintain that relationship.
How do you meet them first?
Yeah. And the way we meet thousands of engineers goes back to this idea of best people know the best people. So we identify really smart engineers on top universities who become our ambassadors. Currently, we have 350 ambassadors across 30 top universities who introduce us to their impact-driven, mission-aligned, brilliant peers. And we have our team members who we call principals, but you can take them as agents of Silicon Valley. And they fly all around the country to grab in-person coffee with those students and get to know them so we can be a partner to them. But one thing that's generalizable here goes back to how you can most effectively meet with investors. I think the warm intro is extremely important, and the warm intro coming from someone they respected, ideally, who is not an investor but a successful entrepreneur, is the most effective way. Like if an entrepreneur I've invested in introduces me to a friend of theirs saying, hey, this is another entrepreneur I really respect, you should meet, I'll definitely prioritize them. Whereas if an angel investor introduces me to a company they invested in, I wouldn't be as excited about it compared to the entrepreneur case. And if it's a cold outreach, I'll mostly just put it to my trash folder.
David, what's the best way for a startup in Utah to reach out to you?
No, I think I couldn't agree more with what he just said. I think the most amazing tool you have are the relationships you build with people you trust already. So portfolio companies and the leadership, it could be anyone, honestly. It doesn't have to be just a founder and a CEO. Anyone who's really thoughtful about what they're doing usually has a very, valuable network too. I think that's a really good way to sort of reach out to people for sure. I think cold calling is I think very useful at different stages. So if you are looking to make a personal connection with an angel investor, that may actually be, your best shot. Obviously, you don't have other formalized ways of reaching out to them. I think with more institutional, larger, it's probably very important.
I would just add one thing to that. So when a company might reach out to me, it comes from a investor friend, of course, an entrepreneur. The first thing or occurred to me is definitely a priority, but also an investor friend says like, hey, we will, this is like, for example, it comes from Eylul. Hey, we go like, this is like early stage, so you might be interested in. It's a great company, but like, I'm investing in growth stages, so this will be also a helpful tip for entrepreneurs. So, Emrah. Yeah, I'm really curious. Like, how did you get introduced to your investors? How did you reach out to them?
It's yeah.
By the way, he raised $5.8 billion.
And we're currently raising, announced April 20 million. So
20 million, okay.
half of that is still. So, but yeah, it's a very difficult process. So I had a background in investing, real estate, and so forth, but those investors had nothing to do with tech. So we had to start from scratch, basically. And again, when we started out, it has to be warm intros, I think, initially. You can do cold calling, but the effect of that is very, very low. That's what we figured out as well. We didn't cold call that much, but we tried just to get some data points. Three people that helped us a lot in our initial launch was one was Sal Salantin, who pushed us to come here actually. Patrick Keating, who was actually the SoftBank VC. Initially, he had actually set up that department in SoftBank in the late 90s. And we were very, very good friends, and he was an ex-HQ person out of here. So he kind of also did some warm intros at the time. This was about 4 years ago when we started raising our initial round. And then our first investor, Dave Love, who I met at Kayin's house in San Diego. And Kayin is one of the investors of Summermed through Vickers Ventures. Basically, Summermed is one of these pharmaceutical companies. So I met Dave Love over there a few years back, and he was asking, "What are you guys doing?" And I was like, "Hey, we're working on this project." And he said, out of the blue, "How much money do you need?" I was like, "Well, you're not like, whoa, really?" I was like, "We're not raising." He goes, "Okay, I'm sending you 200K." And that was our initial talk with him. I was like, "I can't believe this." So we had to take it seriously. It was no longer a lab project, but something that we had to actually take to market. So Dave Love was very, very influential in the beginning. And then just warm intros and just knocking on people's doors. So as an entrepreneur, you're going to be rejected all the time. And you have to face that. It's like you get 90, 95, 99% rejections constantly.
How many investors did you meet before closing the round?
So we did 3 rounds. One was a convertible note. And that round, because I knew you were going to ask the question, I actually looked through the whole thing. We met with 350 investors.
350.
Yes. We met with 350. And some of them were angel institutional. We didn't take institutional money in our convertible note, which is pre-seed. But we raised 1.8 million, mainly through angels.
And out of 350, how many of them invested?
About 25, 24, 25. Which isn't bad. I mean, it's still pretty good. I mean, it's less than 10%. But if you look at the entire thing, so we did pitches. We went to incubators. We were like children, right? Like running around pitching people. So if you put all those together, actually, we pitched to over 1,000 investors. And so this is it's a numbers game. I think we have to understand that it's a probability game, because remember, in a very, very early stage, and these guys won't tell you that, but they may later. What we've found through our experience is they look at 3 major things, and three are very solid, concrete. One is a soft thing. So first, they look at pedigree, because it's very early stage. You don't have revenue, you may not have any traction. So your pedigree is important. Have you done this before? Are you from certain schools? Do you have a PhD in this or that? The second thing they look at is product market fit. And when you're very early stage, that's really, really difficult. You're not going to have real product market fit at early stage. I'm talking seed. So that's out of the question, really. I mean, you may have it, and there may be something there. The third thing they look at is who else has invested. So is there someone else who I know that has invested in this company? A name or someone they know already. So these are the 3 main things. So and we had none of them. And then there's a soft one, and that is, do I know this person from the past, and can I trust them? Do I feel some trust with this person, the founders? And that's softer. It's hard to quantify that, but it could be a soft hand from another entrepreneur. It could be a soft hand from another investor and so forth who hasn't invested, maybe passed on it. So we kind of the entire experience can be summed up in these four attributes that we see.
I would like to jump right there. So Asian efforts, like what do you look for in a startup? So he said like you guys are looking for some certain things.
Do you mind if I do a slightly longer answer, or do you want a short one?
The short one first.
I'm not sure if I can give a short one because it's very nuanced.
Okay.
So I think it's important to remember something about VC to kind of understand the perspective. So venture capital is a truly unique asset class. It's the only asset class where the investee actually chooses the investor. So if you're a public equities investor, if you're buying Apple stock, there's no one at Apple saying, I want this person's money. Whereas if you're a venture investor, you actually need to persuade the entrepreneur to want your money. And what that means is that when an entrepreneur who is well connected in the valley goes out to raise capital, there should be a good reason why they're talking to you. So as an entrepreneur, you need to give that reason to the investor because I'm like, look, there are much more successful early stage investors out there than I am. So why are you not talking to Sequoia and other big marquee firms that are coming and talking to me? The most common reason is because they rejected you. So as an investor, I need to have a good reason why I have an information advantage at the early stage deal. In our case at Human Capital, it's the fact that we've known those people longer than anyone else. There's someone, for example, I'm likely going to invest in. We placed them to their first company 4 years ago. We've seen how they've grown in that job. We've been catching up with them. And we've been discussing them starting a company before they talk to another investor. So I have a unique insight on why we have the information advantage on that deal. The second thing is when you look at the early stage company, I think there are three things that matter a lot. The first one is the founder. Are they someone that's truly exceptional or experienced that gives you the confidence that they have the ability to build a company? And have to dig deeper on that if there's specific questions. The second area is the market. It's not specifically the product market fit. The stage we invested when we're the first investor, there's mostly not even any product. So we don't really care about the product market fit, but we really want to understand the market. Is that a market that can carry on a multi-billion-dollar company? And the third one is the market and founder fit. The founder needs to be able to give a good reason. Why are they uniquely qualified or why they have unique insight to solve that specific problem compared to other smart people out there? And if those three things are really solid, then it becomes pretty interesting to us.
I think you guys actually covered a lot of the really good things. One only thing I would add personally is it's one of those like soft ones. I think it's survival instinct. So and it's so with especially earlier stage companies, those that succeed are not always the ones that started off and went in a linear path. Like a lot of it, like one example is one of our portfolio companies, Slack, started off as a gaming platform and then pivoted to a messaging business and has sort of taken on life of its own. It was not quite easy to predict. People didn't fund originally as a messaging platform. It was and it had decent support as well. But then that team had something sort of interesting, something that they wanted to do that's transformative, and ultimately just wanted to make that business survive. And the founder and leadership that really cared to make sure that those employees had a home of their own. And so that's one part of it. The second part of it is, for example, a lot of the healthcare businesses. Looking at you just made me think of that. It's a very tough world to be in because you have not only clinical risk, but you have regulatory and reimbursement risk. And typically, in order for you to see actual commercialization efforts coming out of, let's say, a medical device startup, it will take like almost at least 5-6 years. Realistically, more like 10-12. So you need the person at the helm to have the vision and the perseverance to let it through. And that's actually incredibly hard and rare skill set, that level of like commitment to something. But typically the people that are trying the best capital are those that just do not give up.
Resilient. Yeah.
So we try and there's a function to this actually. So it's you have to be risk loving, and then you have to have low outside options. Because if you don't have, if you can jump ship and work at Google, then you'll do that because it's going to get rough.
And also, there's a really thin line between visionary and seeing visions. You know, like it's hard to discern sometimes as for an outsider, and most certainly for the person living the life. But these are really soft. But yeah.
So guys, we want to receive a deck before the meeting. Like Emrah just said, he raised 200K without the deck. So
I actually know that's not.
that was a deck.
That is not true. I did send that like that.
Oh, okay.
I sent the 5-page like
5 pages.
summary of what we're
Okay.
doing, but it wasn't really a deck.
Deck.
And these decks are infamous, obviously.
Yeah. What do you guys think about it? Like, I'm so old school. When I look at the startup, I really want to see the deck. Eylul, do you see the deck?
I think it depends on the stage. I think if you can run around with an idea and a personality, try to raise angel, obviously funding. If you're coming to us and ask for $200 million, better bring a slide deck. That's what we still do. Show up on time, send the deck before. In addition to like a little Excel sheets. I think it's just those are businesses that obviously have to reach more scale. I do think though it's less about the slides, but the way the entrepreneurs obviously telling their story. And in many ways, typically before we walk into the meeting, having had some understanding of what the business is, we usually have an opinion. And I usually do my work coming in. I try to add value to every meeting and conversation I'm in. So usually I try to learn it. So it's not that I look at the slide deck for the first time and I'm learning it. But in today's world, there's also an incredible broad reach of, if you just Google anyone's name, there's gonna be 5 TechCrunch articles about them to begin with. So thank you, information TechCrunch, to the insights, however. There's already so much to be said about a lot of the companies that I spend time with. So it's nice if you brought it to the meeting.
I will just give a more general tip on this question, which is a lot of investors like to be educated before they go into the room to at least know what you're working on. But if you end up sending a deck before you actually schedule a meeting, you're giving them a reason for them to reject you before even they're meeting with you. So the usual thing I suggest to entrepreneurs raising capital is once you schedule a meeting through a warm introduction, send something. It can be a deck, it can be a paragraph, it can be a one-pager. Send something that will enable the person to come a little bit more prepared than nothing. But it's better to send that piece once the meeting is scheduled because they'll feel really bad to cancel afterwards.
Yeah, just some practical feedback. So the aim of the first meeting is to get the second meeting. So you don't want to overload them with information. It's just the people just throw it away. So just a paragraph to get the first meeting and maybe a deck. But you need to stay loaded to give them more information in the second meeting. So the aim of the meeting is to just get another meeting, always.
Emrah, actually, this question is for you. What is one thing you wish you knew before the fundraising?
I wish I knew it was this difficult. Except for the 200K that came from Dave Love. We thought it was going to be very easy, but it became more and more difficult as we rolled out the company and talked to people. These things in real estate when we're raising money, it was very, very easy because it's an asset class that is that people understand. It's not VC driven, it's PE and LPs and direct investment by certain funds. But VC investment tech is very high risk. And we understood that going into it, but we weren't very sure about how the VC environment and the investment environment would react to something that we were trying to develop.
How long did the entire process take for you guys?
So the convertible note was a rolling basis. So we started that in 2016, and we closed that out. It was early 2018, so it was 2 years. And then the second one, which was the seed, or was a big VC investment directly. That took about 6 months. We raised, so in total we had raised 2.8 million. And then we closed a bridge round in December, and that took like 2 to 3 months. But it does get easier, guys. But it's not, nothing is smooth. But the more investors you have, the more complex your company is, and your cap table looks. You're paying incredible amounts of legal fees, both yourself and for the VCs. Usually pay the VCs money as well. So you get 100K for yourself and 100K for the investors. You need to be careful about how many investors you have on your cap table as well. I heard a nightmare story the other day. Someone had like 400 investors on their cap table. Just really crazy stuff. So you want to limit that going forward. We have about 30 right now, and two are anchors, which are VCs. The rest are like smaller angels. But a lot of those angels are advisors as well. So that's really important. I think, for people who are trying to raise money right now, always try and bring on advisors who can also invest. Even if it's like 20, 25K, they actually open up a lot of doors. So that's one tactic we used, was bringing on people like that. We have Greg Back, Michael Eylul, early investors, Bora Uygun, who helped us a lot through the fundraising process, and convertible note initially. So that's like it's not a secret, but it's like something that entrepreneurs can use initially, and it helps with the warm intros as well. So
This question is for Baris. So I met Baris back in 2014, I guess. So when I was running my startup accelerator in Turkey, and you were a student at Stanford, and then you became an entrepreneur, and now you're an investor. So how has being an entrepreneur before becoming an investor shape your investment strategy?
I still consider myself an entrepreneur because I also run a business while we also run a venture fund, which is a pretty unique place to be. But I think being an entrepreneur makes you understand what the entrepreneur is going through better and become a more effective and relatable partner to them, allow you to empathize with them better. And I see all of them more like peers and create less hierarchy in the conversation.
And again, Baris and Eylul, tell us a little bit about your latest investment and why did you invest in that startup? Eylul.
We led the last 2 rounds of a company called Greensill. It's a supply chain financing business based in London, and they're basically the largest non-bank bond originator in Europe. There's more than 8-9 million merchants on the platform. It's just the reason why we got really excited was the scale and the pace by which they reached the scale of what they're doing. Opportunities for synergies across the portfolio. But to be honest, most interesting because the founder is this like monster, this kind of like hunter, like absolutely has a survival instinct. Like Greensill, he used to actually, he comes from a traditional background. He used to run similar organizations within large banks before Citi and Morgan Stanley. So he knows the craft really, really well, and then decided to take it on its own. He has an incredible network. That's one of the reasons why they've been able to grow so quickly. And he's just constantly looking to expand different, across different product portfolios. That's one of the reasons why I got excited about the business.
I will answer this by sharing a story that might be more relatable to early stage founders of early stage investment we've done a while back. Are there people who know Brex here? A company called Brex? Yeah, okay, so it's a company that's now last valued at over $2 billion. They're in fintech. We were actually the first investor in that company, and the founders, Enrique and Pedro, they were Stanford freshmen. And we met with them 3 weeks into school. And we spent over 7 weeks to get to know them, understand what they want to work on. And be a top partner as they were thinking what to do next. And over that time, we got to hear their story. And we're just blown away by the things they've achieved before. And kind of the quick version of the story. both Enrique started coding when he was 12 to hack a game his mom didn't want to pay, and then Pedro started coding when he was around 13, 14 to jailbreak iPhone in Latin America. And both of them started their first company together in high school, which became the largest payment processor in Brazil by the time they were 20. And then they went into Stanford knowing that they will start another company really quickly. And by that time, they had so many points in their history to show that they had what it takes to be a founder, more than that they were already successful founders in their country. So it was a really exciting opportunity for us to partner with them.
I would love to take a couple of questions from the audience, since you guys, many of you guys are raising right now. Do you have any questions for investors? Please.
Your biggest misses, your last 3 biggest misses, and why you did investment.
I don't know if it's a fair suggestion by the house rules, but is it okay to turn off the video for Q&A?
Sure. Why not? Actually, let's turn it off.
Yeah, do you want us to sign Indian as well? Or? Okay. I think it's off right now.
What was the question?